My fingers trembled as I stared at my father's text message, the white satin of my wedding dress rustling against the bridal suite's velvet ottoman. The words blazed from the screen. Final chance. Invite Jillian or find someone else to walk you down the aisle. A knock at the door sent my phone tumbling into the folds of my dress. Tessa? Miranda, my wedding planner, poked her head in. We need to finalize the processional lineup. Your father... There's been a change of plans. My voice caught, but I forced the words out anyway. The truth was, the change had started 3 weeks ago. Over a dinner I should have known better than to attend. That evening, crystal glasses clinked against bone china as my father topped off his second glass of Cabernet. The familiar scent of his beef bourguignon filled the dining room, but my stomach had twisted into knots the moment I'd walked through his front door. She's your sister, for God's sake. He set the wine bottle down with more force than necessary. The burgundy liquid sloshed dangerously close to the rim of his glass. This grudge of yours has gone on long enough. I pushed a roasted carrot around my plate, keeping my voice steady. The woman who slept with my fiancé 5 years ago doesn't get to celebrate my happiness. That was ages ago. Derek meant nothing to her. His fingers drummed against the white tablecloth. Family is family. You need to grow up and move past it. Past her sleeping with the man I planned to marry? The carrot snapped under my fork. Or past you telling me it was my fault for not picking someone with stronger character? I said what you needed to hear. He leaned forward, his face flushing. Now I'm telling you what you need to do. Jillian attends the wedding, or I don't walk you down the aisle. Simple as that. The dining room blurred. I blinked hard, refusing to let him see me cry. That's your choice? If Jillian isn't welcome, neither am I. He picked up his wine glass, his expression as immovable as it had been the day he'd blamed me for my mother's death. Your call. I went out since I couldn't breathe after this statement. I decided to go to my grandpa's house. I drove to Grandpa Walter's house with tears streaming down my face, muscle memory guiding me along streets I'd traveled since childhood. His porch light glowed like a beacon as I pulled into his gravel driveway. He opened the door before I reached it, his weathered face creasing with concern. I collapsed into his arms, breathing in the familiar scent of pipe tobacco and Old Spice that had meant safety since I was small. Some traditions aren't worth the pain they cause, sweet pea. He stroked my hair as I told him everything. The room smelled of coffee and the molasses cookies he always kept in the ceramic jar by his chair. Your mother would want you to be happy, not compromising your heart to please others. Logan says the same thing. I wiped my eyes with the handkerchief Walter pressed into my hand. He told me this day is about us, not them. Smart man, that Logan. Walter's eyes crinkled at the corners. Seems to me he's not the only one who could walk his bride down the aisle. I looked up sharply, hope flickering in my chest. Would you? Try and stop me. He squeezed my hand. Been waiting 6 years to do something this important. The diner's neon sign cast a red glow across my father's face as I slid into the booth across from him 2 days later. The vinyl seat squeaked beneath me, and the air smelled of burnt coffee and decades of grilled onions. You can't be serious. He stared at me, coffee cup frozen halfway to his mouth. What will people think? They'll think I respect myself enough to celebrate with people who respect me. The words came out clear and strong, surprising us both. His face darkened. This is ridiculous. You're acting like a child. Number, I met his gaze steadily. I'm finally acting like someone who deserves better than what you're offering. The coffee cup clattered against the saucer as he stood. Bills fluttered onto the sticky tabletop as he shrugged into his coat. You'll regret this. Maybe. I watched him stride toward the door. But not as much as I'd regret letting you hurt me again. The bell above the door jingled as it swung shut behind him. I caught my reflection in the window, remembering all the times I'd sat in this same booth as a little girl, desperate for his approval. But overlaying that image was someone new. Someone who had finally learned to approve of herself. The waitress appeared with a fresh pot of coffee. Refill, hon? No thanks. I gathered my purse, leaving my own coffee untouched. I've had enough. Sometimes the hardest person to stand up for is yourself. But once you start, everything changes. That's how I ended up here, in this bridal suite, with my father's final ultimatum glowing on my phone screen. Outside, guests were finding their seats. Somewhere, Walter was straightening his boutonniere, waiting to walk me toward my future. I picked up my phone one last time, typed 4 words, and hit send. I choose me. Goodbye. The memories strike out of nowhere while standing there in the bridal room to finalize the preparations, but this time the memory certainly has its place. Rejected by my father again and again. I remember the smell of Elmer's glue and sparkles filled the kitchen as I hunched over my Mother's Day masterpiece. Red macaroni hearts bordered the edges of the purple construction paper, and silver glitter dusted everything within reach. My tongue poked out in concentration as I carefully printed each letter. That's beautiful, sweet pea. Grandpa Walters steadied my small hand as we worked on the final word. Now remember, day has a capital D. My 8-year-old fingers traced over his pencil marks, determination making each stroke precise. The front door slammed, and heavy footsteps approached the kitchen. My father's shadow fell across the table. What's this mess? Douglas clicked his tongue, taking in the scattered craft supplies. His eyes landed on the half-finished card, and something in his face hardened. Cleaning this up will take an hour. She's making something special, Walter said, his hand warm on my shoulder. That's a waste of time and materials. Douglas yanked open the refrigerator, not looking at either of us. Your mother isn't here, Tessa. Glitter doesn't fix anything. The weight of his words pressed against my chest. Walter's fingers tightened on my shoulder, but I barely felt them through the numbness spreading through my body. Later that night, I tucked the unfinished card into my treasure box, buried beneath old birthday cards and pressed flowers. The glitter stayed on my hands for days, sparkling like teardrops in the sunlight. Years passed, but the pattern never changed. Every Christmas morning, Jillian's pile of presents towered over my modest stack of practical items. She squealed over designer purses while I unwrapped sensible shoes and school supplies. The Dooney and Bourke! Jillian hugged the leather bag to her chest, her 12-year-old face glowing. Daddy, it's perfect! I smoothed my hands over the cardigan in my lap, studying the careful stitching instead of watching her twirl around the living room. The wool was soft, typical for winter. Just like the new vacuum cleaner standing in the corner with my name on the tag. Jillian has expensive taste, but she's smart. Douglas ruffled her hair as she paraded past his chair. She'll need to look professional when she's running a company someday. His eyes slid to me, dismissive. You'll probably end up a housewife anyway, Tessa. Better learn to clean. The years blurred together in an endless cycle. While Jillian sprawled on the couch watching MTV, I scrubbed bathrooms and folded laundry. She joined the cheerleading squad. I worked after-school jobs. She went to parties. I studied alone in my room. But Walter noticed. He slipped college brochures between my textbooks, helped me practice for the SATs when Douglas was at work. You're meant for more than this, sweet pea, he whispered as we pored over application essays at his kitchen table. Don't let anyone tell you different. The Thanksgiving I brought Derek home. Something shifted in Jillian's eyes the moment he walked through the door. She touched his arm as she passed, let her fingers linger. Love that jacket, she purred. Really shows off your shoulders. I watched her all evening, stomach churning as she found excuses to brush against him, to laugh too loudly at his jokes. When I went to bed that night, Derek said he needed to grab water from the kitchen. Hours later, I woke to an empty bed and muffled sounds from down the hall. The door to Jillian's room stood slightly open. Empty wine bottles littered the floor. And there was Derek, shirtless, fumbling with his belt as he stumbled backward into the hallway. Baby, wait, he slurred, reaching for me. I was drunk. She came on to me. It didn't mean anything. I backed away, bile rising in my throat. Behind him, Jillian lounged in the doorway, wrapped in nothing but a sheet. God, you're so dramatic, she drawled. Stop invading my privacy. My feet carried me to Douglas's study. He barely looked up from his newspaper as I choked out what happened. They're adults, he said, turning a page. You should have picked better. If you'd brought home a man of stronger character, this wouldn't have happened. Later that week, at the family Christmas party, I overheard Jillian bragging to our cousins in the kitchen. I stole Tessa's man in one night. She popped a chocolate-covered strawberry into her mouth, smirking. Wasn't even trying hard. That night I changed my phone number. Blocked their emails. Cut every tie I could. But the damage was done. Years later, I found myself studying old family photos, searching for answers in frozen moments of time. In every picture, the pattern was clear. Jillian front and center, beaming. Douglas hovering nearby, proud. And me, always slightly apart, half turned away, as if preparing for the next rejection. My fingers traced the edge of a photo from my high school graduation. Jillian had pitched a fit about having to attend, stealing focus even then. I barely recognized the girl in the image. Shoulders hunched, smile uncertain, desperately seeking approval she'd never receive. The truth hit like a physical blow. It wasn't just Derek's betrayal or Jillian's cruelty. It was a lifetime of being told I wasn't worth protecting. Of being trained to accept scraps of affection and call it love. Of learning that no matter what I did, I would never be enough. I set the photos aside, something shifting in my chest. The question that had haunted me for years finally crystallized. When does loyalty to family become self-destruction? At what point do you say enough? The answer had been there all along, written in glitter and macaroni, sealed in a box beneath my childhood bed. Sometimes love means knowing when to walk away. And finally, soon as the day when I am finally walking away. The buzzing phone jolted me from sleep. Red digits on my bedside clock glowed 2:17 a.m. I went back home after the preps and fell asleep, both physically and mentally exhausted. But now an unknown number wakes me up. My thumb hovered over decline before a nagging sense of responsibility won out. "Is this Tessa Grant?" A woman's voice, crisp and professional. "This is Sandra Chen from Mercy General Hospital. Your father was admitted an hour ago after suffering a stroke." The words hit like ice water. I sat up, sheets pooling around my waist. "How serious?" "He's stable, but..." A pause heavy with meaning. "He's asking for you." 5 years of silence stretched between that moment and my last conversation with Douglas Grant. 5 years of building a life without his criticism or Jillian's schemes. 5 years of finally breathing freely. My bare feet touched the floor. Through the window, streetlights cast long shadows across my bedroom wall. "I'll be there in 20 minutes. I dress up, take my car, head straight to the hospital. The hospital corridor smelled of disinfectant and stale coffee. My heels clicked against linoleum, each step echoing with memories I tried to bury. Room 412. The door stood half open, spilling fluorescent light into the hallway. Douglas looked small against the white sheets, tubes snaking from his arms. His right side drooped slightly, face slack. The mighty Douglas Grant, reduced to hospital gowns and monitoring equipment. His eyes found mine. Something flickered there. Relief, fear, Tessa. The words slurred at the edges. "I'm here." I stopped at the foot of his bed, unsure where to stand, what to do with my hands. The next weeks blurred together. Insurance forms. Medical bills that made my stomach clench. 48 hours after insurance. My savings account drained as I hired the best home care nurse available. Someone who wouldn't let him bully them into cutting corners on his recovery. Once he was released from the hospital, I drove him home and explained the schedule when I am not there. "The physical therapist comes Mondays and Thursdays," I explained, stocking his refrigerator with pre-made meals. "Maria will help with exercises between sessions. Your prescriptions are organized by day in the pill box." He watched me from his recliner, confusion creasing his forehead. "You don't have to." "I know." The words came out sharper than intended. I softened my tone. "I know I don't have to." Each time I called Jillian, the response was the same. Voicemail. Text messages read, but never answered. My sister, who had always been his favorite, was nowhere to be found when he needed actual help. "Try again tomorrow," Douglas suggested whenever I mentioned her absence. But his eyes held a new understanding. The breakthrough came during physical therapy, 6 weeks after the stroke. Douglas gripped the parallel bars, jaw clenched as he forced his right leg forward. "Good," the therapist encouraged. 3 more steps. Sweat beaded on his forehead. His right knee buckled. I caught his elbow, steadying him before he could fall. "I've got you," I said quietly. He stared at me, something raw in his expression. "You remind me of your mother," his voice cracked. "Not just your face, your heart." The words I'd waited a lifetime to hear, delivered in a physical therapy room that smelled of rubber mats and sanitizer. I blinked hard against sudden tears. She never gave up on people either. He looked away, but his hand gripped mine, even when they deserved it. That evening, over lukewarm hospital coffee, he told me about their first date, how she'd worn a yellow sundress and laughed at his terrible jokes. How she'd known every regular's order at the diner where she waitressed to put herself through nursing school. "She would have been so proud of you," he whispered, more to himself than to me. I nearly missed Grandpa Walter's arrival the next afternoon, stepping out to take a work call just as he walked in. When I returned 15 minutes later, the atmosphere in the room crackled with tension. "Everything okay?" I looked between them. Walter's weathered face was flushed with anger. "Just having a talk with your father about choices and consequences." That evening, driving me home, Walter's knuckles were white on the steering wheel. "He punished you for living while your mother didn't," the words exploded from him. "That's not fatherhood, that's cowardice." Douglas had tried to argue, his face flushing. But something in Walter's words had struck home. I saw it in the way his shoulders slumped, the fight draining from him. "He never deserved you." Walter pulled into my driveway, killed the engine, or that lake house I'm supposed to leave him. 2 days later, Walter sat in his attorney's office, signing papers with steady hands. The lawyer's eyebrows rose as he reviewed the changes. "I'm correcting an injustice," Walter said firmly, "not creating one." He drove home in the gathering dusk, satisfaction settling in his chest. In his study, he opened an old photo album. Elizabeth's face smiled up at him from yellowed photographs, her eyes so like Tessa's. The new will lay locked in his desk drawer, a time bomb of justice waiting to detonate. Spring came, bringing with it wedding preparations. Logan and I toured venues, chose flowers, debated cake flavors. But one question on the wedding planner's form stopped me cold. "Who will walk you down the aisle?" Douglas assumed it would be him. He'd recovered enough to walk with a cane, his speech almost back to normal. The entitled assumption in his voice when he mentioned suit fittings made my stomach turn. Then came the guest list. And with it, the ultimatum that shattered any illusion of change. "Jillian is your sister." His voice held that familiar steel. "Either she attends or I don't walk you down the aisle." I found myself on Walter's porch that evening, the swing creaking gently as we rocked. The same porch where I'd run with skinned knees and broken heart since childhood. His hand covered mine, warm and steady. "I've got one good walk left in these old legs." Tears spilled down both our cheeks as the weight lifted from my shoulders. Some choices are answers we've known all along. "If someone shows you who they are repeatedly," Walter said softly, "when do you finally believe them?" The moon rose over his garden, silvering the rose bushes my grandmother had planted decades ago. I squeezed his hand, finally ready to answer that question with actions instead of hope. Finally, the day has come, my wedding. Golden morning light spilled through the bridal suite windows, catching the crystals on my dress and scattering tiny rainbows across the cream wallpaper. My bridesmaids bustled around the room, their matching sage dresses rustling as they arranged flowers and adjusted each other's hair. The usual wedding morning chaos felt oddly peaceful without the customary family drama. My phone buzzed again, Douglas's 5th message in an hour. I left it face down on the velvet ottoman, next to my grandmother's pearl earrings. A soft knock preceded Miranda poking her head in. "Walter's here. Should I send him up?" My heart squeezed at the thought of my grandfather waiting downstairs. "Please." The door opened wider, and there he stood in his best charcoal suit, white rose boutonniere perfectly straight against his lapel. His weathered hand smoothed down his tie, the same one he'd worn to every important family event since I could remember. "Sweet pea," his voice caught as he took me in. "Just like your grandmother on our day." I crossed the room and caught his hands in mine. They trembled slightly, though his grip remained strong. "You look very handsome, Grandpa." "Had to do right by my girl." He touched the pearl at my ear. "Beth would be so proud of the woman you've become." The ceremony space buzzed with anticipation as the string quartet began the processional. I watched through the doorway as my bridesmaids glided down the aisle, their bouquets bright against the sage green of their dresses. The empty front row seats where Douglas and Jillian should have been barely registered now. Walter's arm was steady under my hand. "Ready?" I nodded, unable to speak past the thickness in my throat. The guests rose as one, turning to watch our entrance. But all I could see was Logan at the altar, his face lighting up as our eyes met. The world narrowed to the path between us, scattered with white rose petals that caught the light from the stained glass windows. Walter's steps were measured and dignified beside mine. When we reached the altar, his voice rang clear and strong. "I give my blessing to this union." The celebrant smiled. "Given in love by her grandfather, Walter Grant." Logan's hand was warm as it closed around mine. Walter pressed a kiss to my cheek before taking his seat, and I knew I'd made the right choice. The reception glowed with candlelight and laughter. Crystal glasses clinked as Walter rose for the traditional father's toast, his presence commanding attention without effort. The room hushed. I've watched this remarkable woman grow from a curious child who followed me around my workshop into someone who builds beauty from broken pieces. He turned to face me directly. Tessa, you've shown me what family truly means, not obligation, but choice. Not blood, but love. He reached into his jacket pocket. Which is why, as my wedding gift to you and Logan, I'm giving you the lake house at Placid. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Cousin Emily's fork clattered against her plate. Everyone knew Douglas had expected to inherit that property, the family's crown jewel, for 3 generations. Walter's voice cut through the murmurs. Of all my family, only Tessa has shown what family truly means. She deserves this legacy. Logan's parents enveloped me in a warm hug as soon as Walter finished speaking. We're so blessed to have you join our family, Susan whispered, her eyes bright with tears. I caught glimpses of relatives whispering behind napkins throughout dinner, their expressions ranging from approval to scandal. Emily's fingers flew across her phone screen, no doubt updating Jillian on every detail. But my friends created a protective circle of celebration around our table, their genuine joy drowning out the undercurrent of family drama. The DJ called for our first dance. Logan drew me onto the floor as the opening notes of At Last filled the air. I closed my eyes, letting my head rest against his shoulder as we swayed. You look peaceful, he murmured. I am. And it was true. The empty chairs didn't matter. The whispers didn't matter. This was our beginning. When the music shifted to the traditional father-daughter dance, Walter stepped forward. We waltzed too. What a wonderful world. His steps as sure as they'd been when he'd taught me to dance in his living room at age 12. Other couples gradually joined us, creating a swirl of motion and color across the floor. Look at you, Walter said softly, truly happy at last. The photographer captured the moment, my head thrown back in laughter as Walter spun me under his arm, his face creased with joy. Logan appeared at my side as the song ended. This is the beginning of our family, he whispered, the one we choose to build. Late evening found me in the bridal suite, changing for our departure. My phone screen lit up with missed calls from Douglas. Walter watched as I silenced it and slipped it into my purse. He'll be waiting when you get back, he said quietly. Decide then. We ran through a shower of bubbles to our waiting car, cheers and well wishes following us down the drive. As Logan pulled away from the venue, I thought I knew exactly what would happen next. I was wrong. But I had 2 weeks of honeymoon to enjoy with my husband. I will think of the consequences later. Sunlight glinted off our rental car as Logan pulled into the driveway. The Hawaiian lei around my neck still carried the sweet scent of plumeria, a reminder of 2 perfect weeks away from family drama. Then I saw Himmy Father standing beside his Mercedes, arms crossed, jaw set in that familiar expression that had sent 8-year-old me scurrying to my room. Here we go, Logan murmured, squeezing my hand. My father's silver hair caught the morning light as he strode toward us. Deep lines carved valleys around his mouth, aging him beyond his 63 years. His clothing hung loose on his frame, as if he'd lost weight since the wedding. You've humiliated me in front of everyone we know. The words burst from him before we'd even closed our car doors. I lifted my chin, grateful for the inner peace our honeymoon had given me. I simply celebrated my wedding with people who support me. Support you? His laugh held no humor. I expected you to cave. No one walks away from family. Logan's presence steadied me as we moved toward the house. My father followed, his shoes scraping against the concrete with each angry step. Inside, the air conditioning raised goosebumps on my arms. Family photos from our honeymoon still waited to be hung, their frames stacked neatly on the coffee table. Logan positioned himself near the kitchen doorway, close enough to intervene but giving me space to handle this myself. Why do you hate me so much? The question I'd held back for 34 years finally broke free. What did I ever do to deserve this? Color drained from my father's face. His hands trembled as he gripped the back of our sofa, knuckles white against the fabric. You want the truth? For once in my life, yes. I didn't want a second child. Each word fell like ice. I urged your mother to abort. The room tilted. Blood rushed to my ears as he continued. When she died giving birth to you, I couldn't look at you without seeing my mistake. My legs wouldn't hold me. I sank onto the arm of the nearest chair, the wood digging into my thigh. So you punished a baby for being born? You don't understand. I understand perfectly. My phone buzzed in my pocket, another text from Jillian. I pulled it out, reading the vitriol she'd been spewing since the wedding. Look at this. I thrust the phone toward him. Screenshots of Jillian's social media posts filled the screen. Your precious firstborn mocking me for buying Walter's affection. Posts about how I manipulated an old man to steal their inheritance. His eyes skimmed the messages, something shifting in his expression. She's been doing this for years, I continued, undermining me to every relative who would listen, and you let her. Tessa. But here's what I can't figure out. I stood, my voice steadying. When you had your stroke, who sat by your hospital bed? Who paid your medical bills? Who hired your home nurse when insurance ran out? Silence filled the room like smoke. Where was Jillian? Did she visit even once during your recovery? His gaze dropped to the floor. Number. No, I echoed. Because she only wants what she can take. And you've been too blind to see it. I've been wrong about you. The words came out rough, as if dragged across gravel. About everything. Tears burned behind my eyes, but they weren't tears of joy. They were for the little girl who'd colored Mother's Day cards that would never be seen, who'd scrubbed bathrooms while her sister watched television, who'd believed for so long that she wasn't worth loving. Your apology comes 34 years too late. My voice caught, but I forced the words out anyway. This ends here. Don't expect help again. Ask your favorite daughter next time. He straightened, desperation replacing the anger in his eyes. We're still family. Blood means something. Yes, it does. I walked to our front door, pulling it open. But respect means more. He paused in the doorway, looking back at me. For the first time, I saw him clearly not as the towering figure of my childhood, but as a man who'd let grief poison 3 lives. The door closed with a soft click. I leaned against it, Logan's arms wrapping around me as the last of my strength crumbled. My phone pinged again, more messages from Jillian, then my father. With trembling fingers, I opened my contacts and blocked them both. The afternoon sun painted long shadows across our living room when Walter called. You did what I never had the courage to do, he said, his voice warm with pride. Sometimes loving yourself means letting go. I looked at the empty frames on our coffee table, waiting to be filled with new memories. Always thought forgiveness meant letting them back in. Forgiveness is for you, sweet pea. It doesn't mean giving someone another chance to hurt you. Outside, a neighbor's wind chimes caught the breeze, their gentle music drifting through our open windows. I thought of all the family photos I'd seen in Douglas's house, how I'd always stood slightly apart, as if some part of me had known even then that I didn't belong. But here, in this home Logan and I had chosen, surrounded by people who loved me for exactly who I was, I finally belonged somewhere. The truth settled over me like a warm blanket. Sometimes, the family you choose loves you better than the family you're born into. I touched my stomach, still flat but holding our future. I found out a month ago, during all the fuss, but I could not share with my father. This child would never know what it felt like to be unwanted. They would never have to earn their place in our hearts. Some chains are made of blood, but the strongest bonds are forged by choice. I'd chosen mine. Finally, I could breathe free. After reorganizing our home and working hard, we went to a house lake the following weekend. A warm breeze carries the scent of fresh paint and sawdust through the lake house windows. I run my fingers along the newly sanded windowsill, remembering how Walter taught me to fish from the dock below when I was 8. The old photos of him and Grandma Ruth watch over the living room from their restored frames, their smiles unchanged by time. Logan's footsteps creak on the wooden stairs. The contractor finished the master bath tile. He wraps his arms around me from behind, his palm settling over mine on the windowsill. Want to see? In a minute. I lean back against him, watching our friends unload folding chairs from their cars. The late afternoon sun sparkles on Lake Placid, painting everything in honey gold light. Can you believe this is really ours? Walter knew exactly what he was doing. Logan kisses my temple. Speaking of which, he called. Says he's bringing his special marinade for the barbecue. The gathering unfolds like a scene from someone else's life, the kind of easy family celebration I used to watch through other people's windows. Walter holds court from his favorite Adirondack chair, demonstrating proper fish gutting technique to Logan's father, while Sarah Mitchell, my mother-in-law, arranges her legendary peach pies on the outdoor buffet. I bring my grandpa lemonade, settling into the chair beside him, watching our friends' children chase fireflies across the lawn. Logan, Sarah's voice carries from the kitchen, come help your father with the grill before he creates another charcoal disaster. I watch my husband jog toward his parents, their easy affection still a marvel after my own upbringing. The Mitchells have embraced me without reservation. including me and their Sunday dinners and holiday traditions, as if I've always belonged. The screen door slams, and Mark, Logan's college roommate, emerges with his toolbox. Ready to tackle that nursery painting tomorrow? He grins, dropping into a nearby chair. I've got a steady hand with trim work. My hand drifts to the slight swell beneath my sundress. As long as you don't mind working around the renovation crew, they're finishing the built-in bookshelves. The more the merrier. Mark raises his beer. This little one's going to have the best room on the lake. The evening deepens into twilight, citronella candles casting warm pools of light across the deck. I excuse myself to check the dessert table and find an envelope propped against the pie dishes. The handwriting on the front stops my heart. Douglas's distinctive slant. The letters press deep into the paper as if written months ago and carried around before mailing. My feet carry me to the dock automatically. The water laps beneath the weathered boards as I sink onto the bench where Walter first taught me to bait a hook. The letter feels heavy in my hands, weighed down with words I'm not sure I want to read. The paragraphs inside are short, stark in their simplicity. No excuses for decades of coldness, no demands for forgiveness. Just the plain truth of his failures laid bare, ending with 6 words that crack something open in my chest. You deserved better than I gave. A postscript mentions Jillian moved to Seattle after their final argument. The distance feels right somehow, like the universe finally acknowledging what my heart has known for years. Thought I might find you here. Walter's familiar shuffle on the dock brings comfort as he eases down beside me. The letter trembles in my lap. He wrote months ago. My voice catches. Never sent it until now. Walter's arm settles around my shoulders, solid and warm in the gathering dark. Forgiveness isn't about them, sweet pea. It's about freeing yourself. I lean into his embrace, my hand finding the gentle curve of my stomach. This little one will never doubt they're loved, not for a single day. Just like their mama. Walter's voice roughens. Beth would be so proud of the woman you've become, so proud of the mother you'll be. Stars emerge one by one over the lake, their reflection dancing on the dark water. The letter rests in my pocket, acknowledged, but not defining my future. Behind us, laughter and conversation drift from the house, the sound of chosen family, of love, freely given. Hey little one, I whisper to my unborn child, watching our dual reflection in the gentle waves. Welcome to the family we chose, the one we're building together. The breeze carries the scent of Sarah's peach pies and Walter's grilled fish, mingled with wood smoke and summer roses. From the deck, Logan calls my name, his voice warm with love and promise. I stand, offering Walter my hand. It's time to rejoin our people, the ones who show up, who stay, who choose us every day. The ones who make family mean something real at last.